Hello, everybody. Thank you very much for joining this session on Green Screen Modernization. The session is 3B. Please remember to fill in your feedback. It's easy to click on from the bring your own agenda. So please provide us with the feedback. It helps us for next year. Your presenters today are Avinash Sable and Giovanni Palumbo. They are from HCL and they will introduce themselves and the session, and I hope you all enjoy it. Thank you. Over to you. Oh, unfortunately, you got muted. Let me just sort that out.
Okay, thank you, Anna. And first of all, good morning, everybody. My name is Giovanni Palumbo. I'm working in HCL since 2016. After HCL and IBM signed a partnership agreement, intellectual property partnership, and HCL acquired some products from IBM that are still IBM branded product, but now developed in HCL side. I had the pleasure to have with me today Avinash Sable, who is the mainframe professional service leader. And we are going now to talk about a product that we acquired, that is the host access transformation services, and how this product can allow our client to go ahead with their journey in terms of mainframe modernization. Avinash, could you please go next, please? Okay, this is a very brief agenda about the topics we are going to cover. So why HATS is so important as a modernization enabler, and what this product can do in terms of helping our client to meet their requirement. We will show also a real case study with a project we've been managing on the past months with the client, and potentially also a demo of our product and how this can fulfill the customer requirement. So anytime, please feel free to raise question. We will basically stop time to time and we will answer to you. But in any case, you can raise your question through the chat and the tool so that we can see and answer you real time potentially about your question. But let's just go ahead in this moment and try to understand why HATS can be useful in the modernization process. If anytime I'm talking, since I'm a sales, talking with the client, I've been requested of several questions about the mainframe modernization. I try to summarize in the next slide some main pain point and the topic. Avinash, could you please go next just for a while? Okay. So our client usually contacted us and asked, I would like to remain on mainframe. I like mainframe. It's a powerful environment, but also I do reuse of my application and try to minimize their cost. And at the same time, can I improve using mainframe and same application the operational efficiency of my teams in their day-by-day operation? How much time I can get a return on investment I will do if I will use this product? And also very, very important, last point, excuse me. So can I attract young talent? Can I have people, young people skilled on mainframe but interested to work on these with the new technologies? Well, if these are the questions HATS is able to answer basically all of them, and we will try to show it through the presentation today. Avinash, over to you. And I think you need to enable Avinash microphone.
Yep, I have now been able to unmute myself. So thank you, Giovanni, and good morning, everyone. Thanks for being here with us on today, very exciting journey what we have been going through, and we would like everyone here to walk with us and understand how hats can help modernize the green screen application, be it on I side or on the Z side, um, with this particular product. So Johnny already talked about a few points on how cost reduction, operational efficiency, skills retention, and return of investment can be achieved through this very product. So while we take you through, I'll take you through the small steps, which basically turns to the larger steps, and a few case studies as mentioned in the agenda. So let's go through this. Um, Next slide. So essentially, Hats is a Eclipse-based product or a toolkit which runs on top of IBM Rational Application Developer. It allows you to create a modernization on the web, or you can create on the mobile applications as well. And then you can create additionally web services, or rather an API which can be consumed by other application within your organization. So if you see, we say modernization at your own pace. Basically, it allows you to take your own speed to move from what you see at the background as a green screen to there are multiple steps in between to a final screen, what you see at the very front, which basically makes you see the data in a completely transformed manner, and you can do work much more efficiently. So we'll go through the steps of that, and I'll try to be as fast as possible, but at the same time provide you all the details that will help you understand this particular product. So what are the modernization phases, right? Hats by default provides out of the box transformation of what you see on the green screen to the web, right? Which means the day one, you install the product, create a project, connect the project with the host, be it I or Z, and deploy your application on an application server. You do that on day one, you will get this view. We have various templates in the project, and one of the template is what we have shown in here. So all the screens, what you see here, the function keys will be by default converted to clickable links, buttons, input box, and so on and so forth. So that's the first phase. And that's the major chunk of load which this tool takes care. And this is all out of the box, which means today, if you're working on an emulator device, through a thick client or a thin client tool, you're essentially installing an emulator or accessing the emulator through web, right? And working on the green screen. Now with Hats, in one day or for that matter, a few days for the production deployment and all, you can have access of the application, the green screen application directly on the web without much effort at all, right? But then the main functionality or the main feature of the Hats is not about just one-to-one transformation. This is all dynamic transformation. And again, the main feature functionality of this tool is not a dynamic transformation one-to-one, but it's more than that. It's to essentially optimize the overall operation, allowing the user not to be dependent upon what commands to be used and the training on how to understand the different steps of the processes. It's basically allowing the user to be more efficient, much more faster, and reducing the error and the training time. So how do we do that? With the second phase, where you do some amount of customization. So this product allows customization on top of what you see as a green screen. It allows the user to create automated operations. We call it as macros. It allows you to write macros which can go through multiple screens on the right side or the bottom, and basically combine all the data in a specific data stream. And as you see here, you can present it as a part of the table. So we are using a table widget. So essentially, if you see, it's a table widget. We are using Google Map APIs, which essentially means that it allows usage of all the open source plugins and things which are available in the open source can be attached in the Eclipse environment. Allows the user to not plug in through or pass through multiple screens, but just clicking on one specific row entry would update the address in the map, and also fill up the data here. You can actually update the data directly from here instead of going to the multiple screens of the mainframe device. Now, this is what we call as medium modernization, because it's kind of fasten the entire process of the operations what the users are doing. The second phase of that is, when you actually modernize the entire process flow, right? Now, the process flow in an organization, and I think I will talk about this as more from a case study perspective for one of the customers we have created. So essentially, what we are trying to show here is HATS allows the integration with multiple products together. So we have an Excel widget connected here, which is talking to a database sitting on a SQL server, SQL database. Then we have a heat map, Google Maps, and then we have integration of integration of charts, bar charts, pie charts. We are connecting here with, if you see here, two screens. These three screens are actually fetching data from at least 5 to 10 screens where the specific information of the user is being fetched and allows the user to process the data. If you see here, and again, we will have a demo of this specific feature as well. If you see here, there is a drop-down box and there are multiple tabs. All this information can get dynamically sorted out. Now, the idea of talking about this complex modernization is to explain for user perspective, if I have to fetch information about a particular consumer's insurance policy, I need not know as an insurance agent, I need not know what is a specific command, what is the program ID, wherein I have to enter the user's detail. I just will click on this Excel URL and get the user's detail. I'll probably click on this drop down to get what all different policies this person has. Let me zoom in a bit. Policies has, and then I'll probably click on auto policy, household policy, and term insurance policy. There are different policies. It essentially reduces the overall task. And when you click on some of the operations like edit, delete, it actually in the background goes and performs all the steps which you will be manually doing to do this operation. Again, a lot of things to talk about, but I'll try to be concise here. This is in general what this product does. If there are any questions, I'm okay to take, else I'll move to the next slide. This is what we talked at the very beginning, that it allows users, the developers, to create web service or web transformation. And I think we mentioned at the beginning of this session that it helps reduce training. The cost is low. And again, I will justify this exact statement when we come to the case study part. Keeps the cost low of the overall implementation, integration with the business applications, increases the productivity. Again, I'll justify that quick return of investment and practical and low risk. Low risk because essentially when you use HATS for transformation, you really did not touch anything on the host side. There is absolutely nothing you need to modify, install, or place an agent on the host side. Host is completely untouched. What HATS does is reads the data from the presentation space, passes it on with the 30 to 70 stream data or 50 to 50 stream data, and the HATS engine processes the data and presents it on the front end in HTML5 format. And that's how the risk is pretty low, because we are actually not touching the background application, but as such. And again, I will justify these points. Just wanted to make sure we read through this point, because these points are going to be talked in the next slides. So very high level, this is how the architecture of application looks like. The entire HATS development looks like. If you see, I have noted down certain steps in here. The first step for and it's pretty simple. I mean, the first step is essentially install RAD, and as mentioned, HATS is a toolkit which sits on top of Rational Application Developer. It's an IBM tool again. So you install RAD, you install HATS toolkit, and application server. Application server could be IBM VAS, IBM Liberty. These two are generally part of the entire tool set as such. But then if you have Oracle WebLogic, Geronimo, JPass, those application server can also be utilized. So you install any of the application server, create a project, connect to the host. So basically, you have installed that Hatch Toolkit, install the application server, connect to the host, and develop the application to to say perform some screen transformation, create a web services API, write macros, combine multiple screens, combine multiple data. There are no custom codes. You can process the data from multiple sources, from multiple hosts, and still present that entire data in one single format. So you can do that, and you have then your DevOps infrastructure. You can integrate with that, which basically makes sure once you have checked in the entire code, it will trigger the we support by default and scripting. So the and scripting can trigger the build generation, and it can be deployed on a application server environment, be it on dev, QA, or production, right? So once we do that, at the end, the runtime gets deployed. The hats generate EAR that get deployed on application server. That application server can be accessed by web browser if it is a web application, and a consuming application which consumes the hats web services generated, the API which are generated, which are consumed by the application services. So both ways, the end user will have a very simplistic way of accessing the data from the mainframe to the modernized application view of what we have. And as I mentioned, we support 3270 as well as 50 end to end, and TLS 1.2 and 1.3 also is supported in the latest version of our product. We'll come to that as well. I'm just keeping a watch on the time what we have to make sure we are able to cover each and every topic. Let me move to the next slide. All right, so demo. So essentially, I wanted to give some amount of time for our users to have a look at the demo, because what we just saw in the slides were snapshots, right? So let me bring about one session here, which gives you a good idea about. And let me bring the browser. So this is the 3070. This is the default transformation I was talking about. So I am connecting to one of my application server, one of my hosts. I'm sorry, the HCL host 3270. By default, when you deploy or connect to your host, the default transformation looks like this. So let me connect to my server. And as I said, this is all dynamic transformation, which means we are not capturing any BMS data. We are not having any screen information available with us, which also means that if I have this ER ready with me, I deploy this ER on your host configuration with connecting to your host on your system. You will see exactly the same kind of setup on your environment as well. So again, the idea was to just show you a default transformation, how it looks like. And as I mentioned, you can just click on with my mouse, or I can press my button. So I'll probably also enter, say, option number 5 as an example. So I've entered to my keyboard, and just to exit, I will press my function F3, and which takes me out, and I will just I can easily get out from here. Exactly the same steps I would perform on my host screen is what I have been performing here. And this is all dynamic transformation. As I said, all the screens, whether the screens are 1,000, 500, 10,000, everything will be dynamically transformed using this tool. This is, as I mentioned at the beginning of my session, this is called as one-to-one out of the box default transformation. You call it anything, but it's essentially helps you get to see what screens you have on the day one of it or your deployment. Then let me switch to the modern insurance application. This is more of an in-house application which we created to ensure we are able to demonstrate the full functionalities and features of the product. So let me bring about this in here. So what we did is you saw this host screen, right? We kind of developed a nice UI on the top, which basically allows or does a lot of steps like validation of your password. If I'm entering something which is invalid, it will kind of stop me here. It will allow me to see the password. I can actually do a forget password, reset password, and in the end, in the backend, it will actually go and do the same sort of operations what it would do on a mainframe to allow you to reset the operation, reset the password. So let me just connect it again. And this is a classical case of, and I knew that it was going to happen. So I got another one ready with me. And here it goes. Wow. And in the meantime, if anyone has any questions, I can take those questions right now by the time this application comes to life.
I have allowed people to unmute themselves. So please, if you have a lot of background noise, don't stay unmuted. Otherwise, I will mute everybody again. But if you have any questions that you would like to ask, please feel free to ask them now, after unmuting yourself, of course.
All right, so I was able to unmute myself. If there are any questions I can take now, or I can continue with the session.
Avinash, is this something like screen scraper?
Yes, so the base of HAT remains with screen scraping, which means what is there on the presentation space is basically captured by the tool. The entire presentation space data is passed on through the 103270 screen to the application server, and that same data, what is visible to the user on a green screen, is being worked upon by the application. So yes, it is a screen scraping and works on what is available, what data is available on the green screen area.
Thanks, Adamson. One issue we might have with screen scraping is that they've implemented a timeout policy on TSO across the board of 15 minutes or 10 minutes or something like that, some incredibly short time, which is exceedingly annoying, but that's another issue. So I'm assuming if that policy remains in place, that would severely impact the usability of this, or it would have to be able to cope with it.
Right. So this we can have the timeout for the application to be configured in the same application. Right now, there are cases where the host does implements its own timeout policy. It doesn't keeps the agent to be online for for just some amount of time, and there are times when the host allows the user to be online even if it is inactive. In application server as well, you have the ability to configure this timeout so that whenever the user can, even if it's inactive for longer time, they can continue to be on the same session as long as it is configured on the application server and the HAT side.
Okay, and I assume if you're displaying a web page that's got data from multiple TSO pages, then it's jumping around. In the background, it's navigating around all the different pages, gather the information.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. So let me show you, how it looks like. So basically, what we have done is we have created a modernized insurance. Basically, it allows the user to view. So in a home screen, you see this is the green screen area. So if I select it, this is exactly what the green screen application looks like. It allows the user to continue working on the green screen if they want to. But then if they want to use a green screen, the modern insurance, they can use this as well. Now, what we have also done is some sort of user profile. You can select a theme based on the colors you like. There are logging functionality. There is a cart functionality. Help as well is activated, and then you have a breadcrumb kind of infrastructure. So a lot of things can be done. Again, it's not to make the application more jazzy, but to basically showcase the functionalities and feature. Now, what we have done is we have connected it to a database where we have a list of user or some of the users property. Now on the mainframe, on what we have as a mainframe, we could not get all the information what was required on application. Like images and the JPEGs and movies and things like that. So we had a database and an equivalent data on the mainframe server. So we basically, to showcase the the usability, we kind of connected with the database and fetch the data of the user's information, and also fetch the information from the mainframe and kind of club together to show the functionality here. So what we are showing out here, when we click on this item, it basically goes through multiple mainframe screens, fetches the data. And as I mentioned, right, you have the policy here. I could actually see if there are other policies, and if I see there is only one policy, I click on this user, I will probably, I will be able to see more policy here. In auto policy, this guy has 2 policies. I just go and click on the policies here. I'm having some issue probably with my, I don't know why it's not showing, but yeah, I can actually switch between 2 users. It fetches the information from the mainframe, scrapes through multiple screens. There is no household policy. For some reason, I'm not getting the user pictures here. And then you have the heat map, the Google map kind of view. You can actually edit the user's information. And if there is some information, I set up in my, on the mainframe, there are certain field like male or female as an example, right? Here, I can just select between 2 entries. I'm not allowed to enter like 1 or 2 or 3. It's basically a data validation. There is a lot of other data validation, like there's a, sorry.
That's all right. That's good.
Okay, so if there is a calendar widget I've added, right, I cannot add any random values here because it will just accept only calendar values. So a lot of data validation allows the user to not do mistakes on the mainframe side. I'll just discard these changes and I'll not proceed with that. Then the functionalities, as you can actually create a report. I just say print summary. What we'll do is we have implemented BERT reporting, integrated BERT reporting along with HATS. It basically allows you to, I just say customer information. It allows you to generate a PDF report out of it. Okay, and here it is. So, so here what it did is whatever information was there within the HATS infrastructure of the user, the photograph, the information, the policies, all is here captured. If I go back, probably I'll try to get some other users information, which is much more than just 1. So here I'll get 2 policies information switched on. So let's see. So here I will have users information. I'll have policy details, whichever is valid. And yeah, right. Right, so where is my pop-up gone?
I particularly like the fact that you can, for the users that are used to the old system, they'll still be able to have the ability to carry on working in the way they are familiar with a slightly shinier interface.
Absolutely. So this is how we have the interface over here, which basically, and this is just a click of a button here. Okay, I got the here. I'll just save that. I'll close. So this host interface exactly helps you verify if you are, maybe you're thinking, hey, this right information is not correct. Can I go to this particular user information and verify if this is correct or not? So I can just say host. I'll say SCC1, and I'll say, okay, let me verify the user number. The user number is 100300. So okay, let's see, 1103. I'll just say, okay, I just need to select inquiry, right? And I'll say this is the user number. Email detail, is that correct number? 300. It's not 3000. Okay, so this is correct. So HGGFG is exactly what I was referring to. So this is the right information I've been posted upon. That's one. Then it allows the user to email you know, email the report. For some reason, it's opening up Outlook for me. I'm just trying to bring this window here. Okay. Why is this window not coming in out here? So it just opened up here. I'll try to see. Maybe. Yeah. Let's skip that. this is behaving weird because I'm configured on a virtual network here, so it's not letting me go. But yeah, it allows me, and I can actually download the entire report here. I'll say I probably want to select all the user information and say, okay, export the data. So all the information available here, I can just say customer list. Download the entire data. Now, right now, what we have is specific information on the data present over here. I'll just see how the data is looking like. Whatever is downloaded from the sheet here. So yeah, this is the information what I have exactly on my sheet over here. Then there are much more functionalities. Again, part of the product as such, it allows you to be self-reactive, which means that if I have a lot of data and my screen size reduces down, it adjusts itself with the screen size I have. So if you see here, the data has got responsive in nature. I can view the same data on a pad device as well, and my entire screen will get auto responsive in nature. There are a lot to show, and I'm watching my time, which means I need to stop sharing more. But I can take more questions at the end of the call as well if there are more. And then let me jump back to my presentation. If there are any questions, quick questions, I can definitely try to answer and address it right here. Oops. All right, so let's move on. And again, this is a case study, very interesting case study, and on how has been useful for not one, not two, but hundreds of customers worldwide who who have been using this tool from years together. The range of customers stands from few hundreds of users to 100,000 set of users, be it in banking domain, insurance domain, government sector, to everyone. I cannot name any of the customers obviously here, but the idea is this tool has been pretty much effective and helpful for them. So this is a peculiar business case, and I think the challenge, we picked up this specific use case because this kind of resonates with almost all the customers across the industry. The business user lacks the productivity because they have to use multiple mainframe systems. They need to know the commands. They have to use multiple interfaces. Now, obviously, clients have been using, the customers, the organizations have been using mainframe from years together. And for them, changing the mainframe is not a very viable idea. Though we have been hearing out from years together, decades together, that mainframe is done, I think that thought process is old now. Mainframe is not done. Mainframe keeps on evolving, keeps on getting new features and functionalities. And so the clients will never want to change that. But then the customers are looking for is modernize the way how the application can be used by the user. Essentially, even though we are working on the mainframe application, the user still needs to enter all the data manually. Even though you have automation in place, you still have to go through and look on the green screen and validate all the information. Now, these all are essentially challenge. Apart from retention challenge, people are retiring. New college graduates are not really looking forward for working on a green screen. We have multiple challenges, but these are the generic main three challenges apart from efficiency, right? Now, what we did is we kind of did a design thinking, and design thinking is not HCL's design thinking method or methodology. It's essentially a generic approach which anybody can apply on any of the product development. So we applied the design thinking methodology along with HATS, where we had a workshop with the customer, understood what their pain points are. We understood what the needs are, and we kind of had a 2-3 day workshop, understood, came up with the UI of what they would essentially look like, what are the primary priority scenarios which the user find much more difficulties in performing. And based on that, we came up with a UI, we came up with a wireframe diagram. After everybody's agreement, we developed MVP kind of infrastructure, and then asked the client, once they agreed on it, we kind of asked them to carry on it from further development perspective. And that's how the phase 1 was delivered. Now, as I said at the beginning of the slides, that it is cost effective, less disruptive, and it's done within months, not years, right? So we completed this project, and when I say we, it's not only the lab professional services. Any set of skilled people having skills in HATS can deliver, if designed properly, within the few months time, the entire application. Now, how it helped it in terms of efficiency, it's reduced the overall operation time of one activity or few activities from about 5 hours to maximum 1 to 2 hours of time, and they were pleasantly happy. I mean, this is specific to a particular customer, so they are pleasantly happy, and now they have been continuing to develop more applications on top of it. More set of users are getting registered to this applications, and these customers have been using it from past 3 to 4 years. Essentially, what happens is we are getting clear benefits from cost optimization perspective to increase productivity and faster time to value. So these are the essentially leading to business process optimization, where we are optimizing the entire business flow. Quickly looking at what we are getting at the end of it. So this is this user who are working on 15-20 screens for one specific operation, and manual entry, clicking information manually, filtering information, and having once the order is created or once the user information is created, the information about all the user needs to be either exported to Excel or needs to be brought out, and then you need to create a report out of it, send a report over email and things like that. And we saw all these are extremely possible with HATS. So as I said, the users are very extremely unhappy about this fact, and with HATS design thinking solution, we came up with this application which exactly I showed to you. And obviously I cannot show the application, so this is kind of representation of how and what a modernized insurance from our perspective for the customer looks like. So that's how it helped the customer getting past the struggle of working on the green screen and not disrupting the entire mainframe host environment, but at the same time allowing the business users to get much more efficient solution without much effort trouble. And at the same time, as I said, since the green screen doesn't get affected while the development is going on, nothing gets you don't hamper in between the regular day-to-day operations. So the transition would be very seamless for them. So that's about how all the operation happens. This is all about adding the user information. And back to the same slide which I presented before, right? Reduce training because it's all web. Everybody these days know how to work and place and play with web operations. Low cost because it doesn't take much time. You have a quick return of investment. Practical and low risk. You just need the product with you. You need skills of developers. You need some amount of time to work with the business user to understand and know the requirements. Then start working on the entire application and deploy it on a distributed side or on the mainframe side, because application servers these days are capable of running on distributed sides as well as the mainframe side. So you have the advantage of being run at either places, right? And integration with the business application. Now, if you create an API out of hats. This API can very well be integrated to your your organization's application. So we have a customer who has Salesforce in place, and they really wanted to have an integration with the mainframe, because for accessing any operations, they would click on a button which will open up the emulator session for them. Now what we did for them is integrated the entire hats iframe within their Salesforce application, and did certain amount of optimizations, some macros, which is essentially basically gets the entire data what they're looking for while processing an operation. So it's a pretty fast way of performing the operation, and it's a seamless way for the end users. Latest features, and I think I just looking at time, you have 20 minutes. I think I should be able to manage all the slides on time. Latest features, we have two versions running in the market, 9.6, 9.7, and we have 9.603, 9.704, if I'm not wrong, running in the market, with both the parallel streams getting the latest versions always. TLS 1.3, the latest addition. Mac was always there, and with new OS platforms, we keep updating. The large screen data, I think JAX RS for REST APIs, Swagger documentation for REST APIs. We have an interface and connection ability with ZOS Connect Enterprise Edition as well. So any API generated through hats can very well be integrated with ZOS Connect Enterprise Edition as well. HTML5 out of the box transformation, what you see is HTML5 compatible. You can use different template designs. We can use integrate BERT for report generation. We can integrate Excel, connect with database, connect with multiple hosts. You can develop a UI on any of the modernized way of UI development methodology. So all these along with the latest version of Hands. Again, we will have this slide deck shared, so you can go through the latest and greatest of the functionalities and feature. In any case, you can also go through IBM site and get this latest information. If you are looking for the first time, you have to go through Password Advantage for the product. If we are looking for the fixed packs, IBM Fix Central is the way to go. I think we all know if you are IBM customers. Best practices. Okay, before going to best practices, let me give a pause here. Can take few questions if there are any. Okay, all right. So let's move on to the best practices part. So always, I think it's not new. It's not me who is telling. It's not Hats which is telling. Having a high availability architecture is the need of the day, to make sure in case of disaster, in case of server down, in case of server crash, in case of application crash, you always have a backup application taking care of it, right? So in case of Hats as well, we recommend a high availability based architecture. So if you see, whenever the agent accesses on the client side, passes the request, goes to the load balancer. Load balancer further passes the information to IBM HTTP server. It can be one or two. It's a generic diagram, so please do not count me for it. You can have a preference of having a load balancer and an HTTP server, or load balancer not having HTTP server, and so on and so forth. It's completely depend upon how your infrastructure is. It completely depends upon how your user base is, whether it runs in hundreds or it runs in thousands or 10,000s or 100,000s. Based on the load we need to design, you need to understand how the architecture of your entire deployment should be. And then number of application server nodes also completely depends upon how you're going to be defining your user load, the cluster environment, and so on and so forth. At the end, the application basically essentially talks to the 3270 or 5250 host, and the agent gets the access to the host site. So one goes down, the entire load falls on another one. So you have you have the capability of putting the load on the other side of server. And I think we do have in my backup slide, I do have the recommendations on how much and which type of hardware and software configuration should be used for what sort of load, for what sort of application complexity, and so on and so forth. Moving on, what are the skills required, right? I think it's very important, pretty simple. We have, developer profiles, we have QA profiles, architecture, we need to have IT administrator for that. Build-in infra, again, it's a optional kind of thing. You can actually run without built-in infra engineer, or in fact without entire DevOps pipeline in place. And then project manager, it's always recommended to have a PM in place to make sure the entire agile workflow is in control and in works as is designed. Now the skills required, as you see, HTML5, Java, J2E, JS, CSS, pretty much on the front end development part. HATS knowledge, macro development, that's the key. Macro is the key for the entire application development for HATS. That's the key element for HATS. So macro development allows the web modernization. It allows the API generation, everything in Bootstrap, Angular, good to have. You can develop your UI based on any of these frameworks. DB skills, if your application is going to be interacting with a database, sitting on mainframe, sitting on distributed side, and obviously documentation is something which we all take it lightly, but it's essentially a very great point for the end user who are going to be accessing the application, not to be taken lightly on that. Test profiles, I think I need not tell, front end manual test and so on. So for load balancer architecture requires the IT administrator to be to be aware of how things to be set up. Application server administration, very critical point. So the ones in red are pretty much mandatory. The ones in black are something which we can run without it as well. Application server knowledge is pretty much important for the build-in infra guy, and agile methodology from PM perspective and project management tools as well. By default, HAT supports and scripting. So if you want to have, after your entire source code has been checked in your repository, and scripting based build triggeration is, works pretty well. That can, with your CI/CD pipeline, that generated ER can be deployed on application server. Of late, we have also started supporting Maven scripting as well. So that also allows a great integration with CI/CD pipeline. Moving on, right? So very critical. You need to understand how your application is. What's the application flow you have? What is the application complexity you're going to be working with, right? So when I say application complexity, it means if you have a one-to-one transformation, which essentially is pretty basic, a simple way of doing work. If you have an application where every date field gets transferred with date widget, yes or no gets transferred with the radio button, multiple input field gets transferred, get replaced with a drop down, and if you have a data in tabular format in your host screen, can by default get the view of a tabular view. All these are simple kind of transformation. If you have multiple screens getting accumulated to one, if you have a macro performing some sort of action, then getting the data back after the operation is done and presented on the screen, that is kind of medium complexity. Medium complexity will also have a range of operations to be done, and complex operation would be something which I just showcased in the previous live demo section. We always need to have, that's a given, right? We need to have production for sure. We need to have QA, obviously. Dev environment is good to have. It's not mandatory. And then you have development machines. In the HATS developer can perform their own level of operations on their development boxes, but a dev environment allows the entire team to verify what has been developed and which can be basically pushed to the QA and then the environments. DevOps, as I mentioned before, essential, but not mandatory. Load testing, very critical point. Whenever we create an application and we know what is going to be the user load, it's very essential to know what is your application server's capability to take the load, right? How much amount of load the application server can take, and to verify that in a load testing environment is pretty much recommended, if not mandatory. Whenever your user load goes beyond 1,500, and where application complexity also increases, it's pretty much recommended to use some sort of load testing environment to make sure your server is able to manage the amount of load which is coming to the party. High availability verification, high availability architecture by pulling down on the app server, deployment, architecture validation, and application servers load pattern is to be validated by the IT administrator. So again, these are all good practices recommendation. A recommendation on terms of hardware software configuration. If I'm having a complex HATS application with 500 user base, I recommend, or rather we recommend, HATS server for development, QA server, a couple of them to have a similar architecture as a high availability architecture to production server, application server, a load balancer, HTTP server, database. If we are having a communication database, application server needs to have minimum 4 GB of heap. Minimum 4 GB of heap, because when we deploy applications, we have multiple sessions running in. Each sessions will have some amount of memory area allocated. So as and when your user load increases, the consumption of heat opens up. And if your application has any issues or some open threads or unclosed connection, that keeps on adding up to the value, and your server might crash. So it's very important to have a reasonable amount of heap value on your assigned to your application server. For development machine, for what are the software prerequisites, what are the production server prerequisites, and what are the software requirement for the production server. As I mentioned, it's a two-part. One is on development side, where the developers develop the application. Once the application is developed, the EAR is placed on the production application, where only a couple of things will be there: application server on which the EAR will be sitting on, and the heap and memory analysis tool to keep a watch on the application server, whether it's being performing fine or not. It can be deployed on a distributed side or IFL, or we can directly deploy it on on the Z portions of it. All right, right on time. Questions, anyone? And I think after that I have backup slides which will be available to you all after this session. So we have 7 minutes. Hopefully I'll be able to take the questions if you have any.
Thank you. You are all able to unmute yourselves, so if you wish to ask a question, please go ahead.
All right, so no problem. I mean, thanks for your time, everyone. This is where you can connect with us. If you have questions after this session, feel free to note down this email ID. And this is a group ID, which means once you email this ID, the multiple folks would be able to see your questions, and one of us will respond to you. And any queries, any questions, suggestions, recommendations, we are there to provide all the information to you. All right, so
there is a question in the chat that there are a few similar tools on the market from the likes of Micro Focus. What are the key differences with HATS?
Yeah, I wouldn't undermine any of the existing product, but then in HATS, as compared to other products, and again, I will not name any of them, the development of the application is completely on Eclipse-based environment. Unlike few which says directly the development is on web-based environment, there is no BMS maps required. It's all dynamic transformation. So the zero-day transformation or the dynamic default transformation is essentially out of the box. I mean, unlike others, the dynamic the web transformation being on Eclipse-based plugin and allowing many tools to be utilized within the entire tool sets makes the tool much more flexible. Licensing is thing which I will not get into the part of it. From the flexibility perspective, we have a number of application servers which are supported as a part of HATS as well. Again, I will not compare of which all other applications, what the other competitors support as application server. We are kind of equivalent in all those senses, and it's not that complicated. I mean, I know at least 2-3 products where I've tried to explore them, where it's pretty complicated to understand different property sets, different property icons, and it's not that simple. But again, as I said, I'm not going to bog down any of the product. Our tool has its own advantages, as I mentioned before, and definitely, if you like to have more discussion, we can have a one-on-one conversation, and we can probably try to give more details about the other competitive products and the HATS as a product.
Okay, there have been some links put into the meeting chat. So if you want to pick those up before the session ends, I suggest you do that now. If you want to stay and chat to Avinash, I guess I should actually check he was available. We can keep this room open for another 10 minutes or so. So please do that if you want to have a conversation.
Yeah, I'm here. I'm definitely, thank you, Anna, for this. I mean, I will be more than happy to stay around here. I see Robert Liz here as well, a veteran in HATS. So yep, definitely. We can be here for some more time to answer if there is any question. I'll try to pick up all the chat messages. If there is something I can answer, I will do that.
Okay, so if you have no further conversation that you want to have, then you're free to leave. Otherwise, if you want to stay, you can unmute yourself and chat with Avinash and others.